Hello, my name is Brian Revis, and I'm here to present my Freshman Fundamentals program for the Prevention Project for CEP261. I know the name's a little corny, but I promise there's at least a little bit of merit to my program, so here we go. So just to give a brief little rundown of the program, it's a 3-day program that's going to be for incoming high school freshmen. It's going to be mandatory during the first week of high school, and the model is based on like basically an improved model of the DARE program. It's going to be a hybrid between their abstinence model, but also with a moderation component of it. My real goal is to hammer down on the point that just saying no in the beginning and getting kids to not do drugs or not try alcohol while in high school is obviously the best course of action, and we're going to emphasize that. But also I want to be realistic with students, and I think that they're going to appreciate the fact that we can be realistic with them about, if you see someone doing this, if you see someone drinking, if someone offers you this, give them those real life examples so they can be prepared when they're inevitably exposed to it while in high school. I said I was going to build this, slightly off the DARE program that I took while I was in elementary school. But I don't think that this program's perfect, obviously, and I know it's gotten a lot of ridicule in the past. So I guess I'll start off with a few of the mistakes that I think that the DARE model made. They only focus on abstinence. They're saying, you absolutely cannot do these drugs. You absolutely cannot drink. If you do, all these bad things are going to happen to you. Well, a lot of kids, when they saw their friends trying alcohol or saw their friends smoking marijuana for the first time, and their head didn't fly off like like the DARE model claimed. Maybe some of those officers I know would get a little carried away. They got maybe a little more curious about what else is out there, because they were like, okay, well, obviously this didn't happen when they said it did, so I wonder what's going to happen if I try this. So I think that model proved to be ineffective, and they weren't. The officers weren't always truthful about the real effects of drugs, and they tried to basically scare people into not trying it, which I think was an ineffective way of going about things. Having said that, though, I do think that the DARE model did have some positive aspects to it. I know that with police officers teaching the material, they had some real life stories to tell, which obviously it was cool being young and seeing a police officer in your classroom telling you cool cop stories, and it made kids take them seriously, of course, too. The intention behind it was positive. It was government subsidized, so there was no cost to schools, so that was good. They were just trying to decrease the amount of adolescents that were getting into drugs. And they used real life examples, like I said before, to facilitate the lesson, but also in that same breath, they were kind of using a little bit of far-fetched examples, like if someone offers you crack on the playground was my example, and that might be a little bit far-fetched, but it needed to hammer down and be a little more real with the students about what they were saying. So a reason why I wanted to do this program to incoming freshmen is because I've got jokingly on this slide, it used to be pizza parties with your friends, and now all of a sudden those parties are turning into, the friend that grabbed a bottle of Pop-Off from their parents' alcohol cabinet, and now it's a party. So all these new experiences, these new, alcohol, when alcohol and drugs are being introduced when you're that young, you're extremely susceptible to peer pressure. So I think it's important to teach these kids that obviously the best option is to say no, but B, what are you going to do when you're introduced to these things? So hammering down a little bit more on the program, like I said, it's going to be a 3-day program. So the first day, I want it to just be a icebreaker day. The kids are going to get introduced into small groups. It's the first week of school, so it's good to have the first day, I think, be kind of just laid back, get to know the people around you, do some games that have fun facts about different like drugs and alcohol. Just a way for the faculty to kind of introduce everybody to the program and what's going to be going on the next couple of days. So day 2, I'd like to hammer down on the abstinence portion of things. I'd like to support that stance on abstinence with possibly I was going to see if families from the school or surrounding areas that were affected, ideally if they were, obviously not ideally, but for our program, ideally if they were affected by drug and alcohol abuse in some way. Maybe they had a child that got into drugs and died young, or something like that. Somebody that would volunteer. I know we had these at our school programs to try to discourage drug use. We'd have families come in that had kids in our high school at one point that might have gotten into drugs and passed away. They'd come back to the high school and tell their story, and I know that those stories really have they stick with the students, especially when they're exposed to those things. Those stories will ring through their heads. So that'll reinforce the abstinence portion of this. In day 3, I think that it's important to reflect on the abstinence, but then transition into the moderation portion, which I'm going to get to in the next couple of slides. But basically, what to do if someone's offering you drugs, or your friend is using drugs, or things like that, things that they're going to be inevitably exposed to while in high school, and how to prepare for that. So this is kind of a bigger breakdown of what I was talking about the moderation. So on the drug side of things, I think it's important that we inform the kids about what drugs are out there, what drugs are more harmful. For example, marijuana is very popular. You're going to be exposed to it. Marijuana is not in itself harmful, but you shouldn't drive. You shouldn't do all these things. Just give the real life material, real life stuff about these drugs, so you can say marijuana is less harmful than heroin. I think we're able to say that. We're able to show that these are the drugs that can kill you. These are the drugs that can get you in trouble and can potentially kill you if you get in the car or something like that. So again, just hammer down, discourage that initial use, but you got to be on. I think the biggest thing is you have to be honest with the kids about what the true harms are and what they're really going to be exposed to, and you can't over dramatize it, or else they're not going to take you seriously. Moving on the right hand side for alcohol, I think it's important. Kids are going to drink too much in high school at parties. It's just going to happen. I think it's important to teach them about the signs of alcohol poisoning. Teach them about medical amnesty, that they can call for help. Obviously talk to them about they're not going to be driving at this point, but in a year from now when you're a sophomore and you get your license, absolutely do not drive. If you see a friend that's trying to drive, call them an Uber. It's not worth it. And we could even have someone, if a family wanted to come in and talk about maybe their child getting in an accident for a DUI, something like that. Again, just to reiterate that point. So just how to handle alcohol, what to do if people are offering you alcohol, how to say no, and then if you do end up using alcohol, making sure you don't make those life-changing decisions to get in the car, seeing a friend get in the car, things like that. So just real life examples. They're going to take you seriously, and they're it might, if it saves someone's life in the future, then this was all worth it. So I think then, it's important to circle back to, after we teach them about moderation, just circle back and just say, hey, listen, you've heard these stories about what's happened when people try things for the first time, try these drugs for the first time. It's a bad road to go down, and conclude that in the end that not using drugs or not abusing alcohol underage is always going to be the best option. It's going to keep you out of trouble. So relating my program back to the book, according to page 564, they were talking about the main reasons why people use drugs. They want to break the ice, they want to enhance social setting. Basically, people just want to fit in, and this is never more evident than in high school. You're trying to make friends, you're trying to be cool at the party. Somebody has a bottle of alcohol. The peer pressure is there, and that's the main reason why everybody has tried drugs or has tried to drink for the first time. And we want to show that how it may seem like not a big deal, trying that alcohol for the first time or taking that pill that somebody gives you, but it can lead you down the wrong road and can have some real life consequences that they need to look out for. I also think it would be a really, really cool feature to have in the program, to have a child or a young adult psychiatrist. I've read a lot of research about the links between a past trauma in a child's life, maybe that a hard home life, they had a death in the family, things like that. I've taken an abnormal psychology class where they've talked about the links between maybe mental health and substance abuse, things like that. I think it'd be a really cool component to have a child or a young adult psychologist to be able to come into the school during this program also and hand out maybe surveys to ask the kids questions, and they can analyze those surveys, and maybe if they're aware of a student at the high school that has a tough home life or has had issues, maybe a death in the family, they can maybe give them a special attention and recognize what students might be more at risk and kind of help them out and make sure they're on the right path and not going down the wrong one. So at the end of the program, at the end of the 3 days, I think that it's important to administer anonymous surveys to the students at the end of that year, at the end of that program, that freshman year. I think that it's important to kind of keep checking back in with them year by year, and you can kind of get some statistical data about, where you're going to be at, where are people trying alcohol still after the program has been set in place, are people doing drugs, or like stuff like that. So you can kind of track those students year after year, and you can also analyze their responses and gauge your current success of the program, and also find areas where you need to improve. I think I always appreciated with when I was a student getting asked for my opinion, how can we improve this program? Are there any new drugs that you've seen out there that we should talk about? Stay in the know. You have to appeal to students. They're not going to listen to you if you're saying things that don't make sense. And yeah, here's my references page. So thank you for listening. I hope you appreciated it. Appreciated the program. Hope you thought it was a decent idea. I've really enjoyed this class. I've learned a lot about substance abuse. I've found it very interesting. So thank you, Megan. I appreciate it. I hope you have a good one.